And this week we talk about the heart-wrenching, hard stuff about actually launching your nomad life. Stay tuned. Where are we?
We are here still near Bath, Maine in the great old USA. And this is the third video in a series that we're producing here on...
Your nomad adventure starts here. We may have more videos. We don't know. We'll see. We'll see how you like it.
And in this particular video, we're talking about maybe some of the difficult conversations, but the idea here is that you've got a plan, you know what your vision is, you know where you're headed with your full-time travel lifestyle.
And you have a date.
And you have a date. That's what we talked about in the last video. Now it's time to really start taking some action. And so before we go on, we are Eat, Walk, Learn. This is Chris. I'm Steve. We're happy that you're here and that you're watching this video, and it means that you're interested in full-time travel and you're interested in a nomadic lifestyle. And why don't you tell us about some of the first things that we do now that we're starting to take action?
Right. So when we decided to hit the road in May of 2021, we had worked backwards 2 years. And so 2 years prior, we actually started the following 3 things, which we're going to take each one piece by piece because they're hard, they're difficult, they're heart-wrenching, and they're absolutely necessary. So once you decide that you're going to go nomad, the first thing you're going to need to do is tell your friends and family. And they hopefully are very cheerful and happy for you, or they may be a little threatened and they might even feel a little violated by it. Right? Yeah.
Well, I think the first thing is that people are confused or they're excited, but friends and family are going to be like,
What?
Wait, why, you're doing what?
You're leaving me? You're leaving us? What about the holidays? How are we going to know where you are? What, you mean you're not going to be at the baseball game next Tuesday? I mean, all of a sudden, they might feel, I mean, fortunately, our family was very, very supportive, and all they said was, just make sure we know where you are, but we'll tell you what happened during the time, because at first they were very, very happy for us. But your family may be like, they might feel abandoned, and you're going to have to assure them that well, maybe you are abandoning them. That's up to you. But you're going to have to assure them that you're not abandoning them, and they're not going to have feelings of abandonment. You know, some of the things that are important to some family members may not be important to you. Like somebody may be really into their birthdays. Me. But some people may be like, if you never talk about my birthday, that's fine. So those things will become apparent when you're, quote, not around in order to be able to deal with or celebrate the day-to-day activities, which on your mug this week.
My mug says...
Ski the
east.
Ski the east. Yeah.
We
it feels
are
kind of like we're not being true to our Denver home.
Yeah, there's not going to be any skiing.
Ski the Rockies.
Yeah.
Anyway, so be kind, be gentle, and allow a lot of time. And we suggest that you start with the most difficult folks first, because if they hear it from somebody else, you know, like, for example, let's say the conversation is difficult with your dad and they hear it from your brother first, that's going to make your conversation with your dad probably even more difficult. I mean, it's your family dynamics. You negotiate your family the way you need to, but that would be our suggestion. Also with your friends, you know, hopefully your friends are supportive and they first thing they say is, where are you going and where can we visit you first? Let's hope that happens. What we have found is that our friendships have changed, and we have much more interactive friendships now with the people we've actually met on the road in our nomad life than some of our more traditional friends who we've kept in touch with, but those relationships have changed, right?
Yeah, and I'd like to say that, you know, Chris, I think kind of highlights some of the negative aspects of,
you highlighted negative.
This a little bit. I'm a little bit more positive about it. One thing to recognize is that a nomadic lifestyle is not necessarily permanent. It's not like something that like, oh, you're leaving the United States and you're going to be gone forever. That actually might happen. But for the people that, you know, we're talking to, our friends, our family, our loved ones, this is something that we're doing. We're going on an adventure, And we're still going to be around. We're still, one of the things that surprises me is that you can be, halfway around the world and still be able to have connections with other people, and frankly, be able to hop on a plane and get back to
a travel, and a travel day is a travel day. Whether you're traveling from San Diego to New York, on a 5-hour flight, or from Calcutta, India to Kalamazoo, Michigan, it's a travel day. Now, one travel day may be a little longer than another travel day, but it's still a travel day. And the good thing is, if you need to get home in that emergency, at home is in the U.S., let's say, for example, let's say it's Denver, the furthest away you are is 35 hours, which that feels like a really long time, but let's say you're in the States and you need to drive to get to your emergency, and you live in San Diego and you need to get to New York, that's 5 days. So it may be quicker for you to get home in an emergency if you're 35 hours away by flight than to actually drive. So, travel days, I think for people who are not traveling with you, they think of travel days as a big, huge monster event that's going to keep you from getting to your home. But once you start traveling, a travel day is just another day like any other day in your life, and you just do it. So
and again,
it's a perception that you'll need to help your family members manage.
Yeah. So, telling the people, but letting them know that you're not gone forever, and that it's not a permanent thing, and you're really not that far away, even though you may be on the other side of the planet. There's still an opportunity to have that connection. So is that?
I think
is that good with number one?
We've beaten that horse. All right, number 2. Now, this is something, we are not lawyers, we're not accountants, we're not legal professionals, but you need to get your affairs in order prior to you departing on your nomad life. These are your wills, your powers of attorney, your end-of-life orders, your living will, your funeral arrangements if you want to do that. These are absolutely necessary before you depart. And you need to make sure that you're thinking about international scenarios. I mean, Steve said we shouldn't talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. Let's say you have a funeral plot in Cleveland and you die in Sydney, Australia. It's going to cost a lot of money and a lot of effort for you to get that body back to Cleveland, Ohio. So make a plan for that, or maybe you change your plan. Maybe all of a sudden you want to be light a match, incinerated. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm worth it.
Really? Your dead body's worth it?
No.
I don't know.
But that's the point, is make sure you're having this conversation, with your partner, with your travel partner. Not that you are planning for something bad to happen, but and especially now, we're kind of in retirement age, and
things happen.
Things happen. So again, it's as we're embarking on this great adventure, just get things in order. Have the conversation. What if something bad happens? What if you need to go, an operation, and you need to start thinking about things like the right level of insurance. I'm not saying you need to do that right now, but at least be having the conversations, the what if kind of conversations.
And we'll definitely talk about insurance in the next version of this video. That's a whole video by itself. But another thing you want to think about is your beneficiaries on all of your living wills and your bank statements and all those things. Just, if it's each other, that's fine. But if you both die in Sydney, you're going to have a little bit of a challenge telling the bank who your beneficiary is if you're not alive. So think through that as well. About
I'm
who
not
your
going to
beneficiary.
Sydney. Sydney sounds like a dangerous place.
Sorry, all you Australians. Actually, we're coming to see you New Year's Eve, so we'll be there. Thumbs up. Think about your beneficiaries too. Now, I think that's all we're going to say about that. Oh, one last thing is, as you decide to be a nomad, you may end up changing your state residency. We'll talk about that also in an upcoming video. That may affect your wills and your final documents as well. So make sure you've thought that through. You've talked with your lawyer or whatever you need to do in order to make sure that your final directives are readable in other states. Okay, the last thing we want to talk about, which kind of goes along with these two things, is all of your treasures and your heirlooms. So what are these? What are some examples of these?
Yeah, you got grandma's china, or in my case, I had 2 big boxes of photos, and most of them
family photos
were passed down from my parents and their parents. So
And then you had that funky heirloom statue from your dad, and then I had my grandma's silver and all of her
I
Depression
had
era glassware.
a bowling trophy from when I was 12 years old.
That was a treasure to
It
you.
was in the Scooby-Doo bowling league.
But you know what? That was a treasure to you. But guess who it was
was.
not a treasure to?
Anybody else
Right,
in the
exactly,
world.
exactly. So you really need to have an honest evaluation of your treasures, a la the Scooby-Doo trophy, and your heirlooms. Grandma's. I had a glass lantern, green glass lantern that was just beautiful. These are the really hard things to get rid of, and for a couple of reasons. Number one is they may have some value, and you may be able to sell them to a collector or some sort of conglomerate site that does depression glass or something. But you know what? Nobody wants your grandma's china. What we
There are some things
Yeah.
that may have a sentimental value to you and may have some value, but they're just so difficult.
and especially like artwork. I mean, we had a house full of beautiful artwork that we tried to sell it. Art dealers weren't interested in it, or we didn't have the right provenance, or we didn't have the right receipts, or we just didn't know. Like, we got it at some art festival, but we don't recall. We can't even read that name on the on the bottom of the painting or whatever. So these things are hard to dispose of. First, because emotionally it's very challenging to get rid of them, and second, because a lot of times there's not the right home to sell them into, and then third, your people maybe don't want them. So what we did is we actually told our kids to come to our house and go through the house and take whatever they wanted. Anything they wanted, they could have. Fortunately, one of them was starting a new house. The other one,
I think we were fortunate in that we had basically 2 adult kids and one who was graduating high school, and so they were at that age where we could pass things on to them, and they would have a place to keep them and keep them safe.
But they didn't want all of it. I
but
mean, they only took very
didn't.
selected items, and it was awkward for them because they were kind of like, we don't want it. You're standing right there. We don't want to take this from your house. But we said, you know what? Imagine if we were dead, you'd have to do this, and then you wouldn't be able to have a conversation about the things. So when they started realizing that this was an opportunity to talk about the history of the items and so on, rather than kind of guess or remember old stories, they really took advantage of that. So that was what worked for us. And then what was left over, I shipped some things to my sister. Then everything else went into an estate sale. We'll tell you, we have a whole bunch of videos coming up about how to dispose of your stuff.
So at this point, what the things that we're talking about now is that we're a year out.
We're 2 years out. Yeah, we're 2 years out.
We're 2 years out, and we're kind of cataloging what are some of the things that might be difficult to get rid of. What are some of the things that we want to make sure that our kids have. Things like photographs that I mentioned, the photographs.
Photo
I didn't
albums.
mention that we want to digitize those. So again, be forward thinking about those things. That's going to take time,
It takes-
and it's going to take some effort. You don't want to leave those things for the last minute.
And you might cry. I'm just
There
telling
may be
you,
a little bit
you
of
might
crying
cry.
in the process.
Yeah, yeah. But Steve's right. On digitizing your photos, that will take you 2 years. Get started now. Digitizing your photos. If you have to hire someone to do it, do it. Otherwise, you can use the Google Scan on your phone or whatever. There's lots of technical ways to do it. To start with your photos. Anyway, so those are the 3 things at 2 years out, after you have your date, that you need to really work on. Get your friends and families on board, get your affairs in order, and get a plan ready for your treasures and your heirlooms. Next week, we'll continue this series. If you give us thumbs up, you subscribe, and you like what we're doing. Talk to you soon.